Hey, Shalom, Makiam, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to say Call Halal, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakahakudash. I want to send double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. I want to send much peace, love, and salutations to you, Akiam, out there pushing the word sincerity and truth. This is Brother Ariala. And what I wanted to do today is read another one of these victory stories that I like out of the scriptures. Actually, this was one of the requests from the brother Tazamah. Shout out to that bro. And I wanted to read this story. Actually, you can find this story in several points of the scriptures. But what I'm going to focus on is the account here in 2 Chronicles, the 32nd chapter. But you can also find this in 2 Kings, the 18th, 19th chapter, which we're going to probably touch on a little piece of that. And then you can also find this in the book of Isaiah, the 36th chapter. And basically, it's highlighting around the time that Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, was invading all the surrounding lands, and he came down to take down the kingdom of Judah. He came down to take down Jerusalem. And so I want to read through this story, man, because it's a pretty dope story. The prophet Isaiah was around this time, obviously. That's why you can read in Isaiah. And so there's some pretty good points that I wanted to highlight here. With no further ado, I'm just going to start. I'm going to read. I'll stop at certain points if I feel like it's edifying, but the point of this is to read through the dope stories. So this is 2 Corinthians chapter 32, verse 1. It says, after those things, and Salakia, man, I'm in kind of a semi-public area, so if you hear noise in the background, I apologize for that. 2 Chronicles chapter 32, verse 1 reads, it says, after these things, and the establishment thereof, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and entered into Judah and encamped against the fenced cities and thought to win them for himself, right? All right, so he came against multiple cities. It's always the prize city is always Jerusalem, where our temple rests, because if you can take down that temple where basically we have stashes of gold and all types of goodly treasures, you can enrich your nation immediately. It says, and when Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib was come and that he was purposed to fight against Jerusalem, he took counsel with his princes and his mighty men to stop the waters of the fountains which were without the city, and they did help him. And we can get the account of Hezekiah's tunnel. It's one of the most amazing accounts in archaeological, especially biblical archaeological history. I'll play a little bit of that later, highlighting this verse 3. It says, so there were gathered much people together who stopped all the fountains and the brook that ran through the midst of the land, saying, why should the kings of Assyria come and find much water? All right. So they basically droughted out the lands surrounding Jerusalem. So they was coming and taking down those surrounding cities. But as they was coming in, the Assyrians would have a hard time getting some of the resources that they would need to sustain themselves. Okay. Verse 5 says, also he strengthened himself and built up all the wall that was broken and raised it up to the towers and another wall without, and repaired Millo in the city of David, and made darts and shields in abundance. And he set captains of war over the people, gathered them together to him in the street of the gate of the city, and spake comfortably to them, saying, be strong and courageous, be not afraid nor dismayed for the king of Assyria, nor for all the multitude that is with them, and there be more with us than with him. It says, with him is an arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our power to help us and to fight our battles. And the people rested themselves upon the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah. Right? After this did Sennacherib, king of Assyria, sent his servants to Jerusalem, but he himself laid siege against Lachish and all his power with him, unto Hezekiah, king of Judah, and unto all Judah that were at Jerusalem, saying, Thus says Sennacherib, king of Assyria, whereon do ye trust, that ye abide in the siege in Jerusalem? All right, so they sent people out saying, hey, y'all know we coming for you. Okay. Meanwhile, and I'm gonna read a piece of history showing you that the Bible has historical facts in it. All right, of the account of their siege on Lachish. All right. So verse 10 says, Thus says Sennacherib, king of Assyria, whereon do ye trust, that ye abide in the siege in Jerusalem? Doth not Hezekiah persuade you to give over yourselves to die by famine and by thirst, saying, The Lord our God shall deliver us out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Because that's what you do when you besiege a city. You surround it and you cut off anything coming in and out. All right. So the people begin to starve. All right. Have not the same Hezekiah taken away his high places and his altars, and commanded Judah and Jerusalem, saying, Ye shall worship before one altar and burn incense upon it? Know ye not that I and my fathers have done what I and my fathers have done unto all the people of other lands? Were the gods of the nations of those lands any ways able to deliver the lands out of mine hand? So you see the pride of Sennacherib and his messengers against all the gods of the other people. Right? Verse 14 says, who was there among all the gods of those nations that my fathers utterly destroyed, that could deliver this people out of my hand, that your power should be able to deliver you out of mine hand? It says, Now therefore, let not Hezekiah deceive you, nor persuade you on this matter, neither yet believe him. For no God of any nation or kingdom was able to deliver his people out of mine hand, and out of the hand of my fathers. How much less shall your God deliver you out of mine hand? See, this pride against Yahweh. This pride against Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua was recorded by these nations. And his servants spake yet more against the Lord power and against his servant Hezekiah. He wrote also letters to rail on the Lord power of Israel, to rail on Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, and to speak against him, saying, As the gods of the nations of other lands have not delivered their people out of mine hand, so shall not the God of Hezekiah deliver his people out of mine hand. Then they cried with a loud voice in the Jews' speech unto the people of Jerusalem that were on the wall, to affright them and to trouble them, that they might take the city. And they spake against the God of Jerusalem, and against the gods of the people of the earth, which were the work of the hands of man. And for this cause Hezekiah the king and the prophet Isaiah the son of Amos prayed and cried unto heaven. See, king and the priest, right? And the Lord sent an angel which cut off all the mighty men of valor and the leaders and captains in the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned with shame of face to his own land. And when he was coming to the house of his God, they that came forth of his own bile slew him there with the sword. So you see how the power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua came. The Most High sent an angel to come and cut the people off, man. And the angel can come and send plague. He can come and send the sword. He can come and send all manner of things. Just like we've seen plagues and pestilence and famines touch these people today as we cry out to the Heavenly Father to save us out of here. Our forefathers did the same thing. We stand in that stead. We want to stand in the stead of those who call upon the name for salvation. And that's why these stories of victory are so impactful for us to remember ourselves. That's right. The kingdom is within. Pride, Proverbs 16 and 18. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Especially if you want to be prideful to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. All right. Now you see that his own people slew him because of the failure that they had against Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Verse 22 says this: Thus the Lord saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, and from the hand of all other, and guided them on every side. And many brought gifts unto the Lord to Jerusalem, and presents to Hezekiah, king of Judah, so that he was magnified in the sight of all nations from henceforth. In those days Hezekiah was sick, to death. And then it kind of skips ahead when he was older, sick to death, and prayed unto the Lord, and he spake unto him, and he gave him a sign. But Hezekiah rendered not again according to the benefit done unto him, for his heart was lifted up. Therefore there was wrath upon him and upon Judah and Jerusalem. Okay, but I want to stay on this one story and not skip around real quick. So what I want to do is I want to go, and this is another. I always you can type in ancient.eu and you'll see me post it. Ancient.eu. You'll see that in the comment section. Or you can type in worldhistory.org. And then you can type in whatever world history you want to look up, and they have articles and good stuff like that. On this one, I'm looking up Sennacherib, and I'm skipping down to his campaigns. As you can see here, you can see the Assyrian Empire. All right. And its expansion, and how it stretched itself pretty far. All right. Now, what I want to do is just go down to this main campaign here. Okay. Lord willing, y'all can stay with me. It says further rebellions and campaigns. It says Merodach Baladan had fled from Elam, but did not remain idle there. He encouraged others to revolt against Assyrian rule. Among these was King Hezekiah of Judah, who was told that if he stood against Assyria, aid would come from Egypt. Shortly after Sennacherib took Babylon, the cities of Tyre and Zidon on the Mediterranean Sea revolted at the same time as the Philistine cities of Ekron and Lachish in Canaan. In 701 BCE, Sennacherib marched his armies into that region to put down the revolts. The Assyrian appointed king of Ekron, meanwhile, had been taken to Jerusalem in chains and handed over to Hezekiah, who imprisoned him. Sennacherib was busy with the siege of the city of Lachish, and so he sent his envoys to Jerusalem to demand the release of the imprisoned king and the city's surrender. It says Bauer notes that they were not just any envoys, but Sennacherib's own general, chief officer, and field commander, and they arrived at the head of a large army. While these officers dealt with the Jerusalem problem, Sennacherib concentrated on reducing Lachish by siege. The historian Simon Angelum describes the Assyrian assault. At Lachish, the city was first surrounded to prevent escape. Next, archers were brought forth under the cover of giant shields. They cleared the battlements. The king then used and tried and tested the Assyrian method of building an earthen ramp close to the enemy wall, covering it with flat stones and wheeling forward a machine that combined a siege tower with a battering ram. The Assyrians then staged a two-pronged assault. The tower was wheeled up the ramp, and the ram was brought to bear against the midsection of the enemy's wall. Archers on the tower cleared the battlements, while bowmen on the ground pushed up close to the wall to cover an infantry assault with scaling ladders. The fighting appears to have been intense, and the assault probably took several days, yet eventually the Assyrians entered the city. So they had all types of ways that they knew how to besiege a city, right? This right here, this prism, is a recording in the Assyrian language of their accounts, okay? The other nations' accounts. When we read a biblical account, you have the other heathens' account as well, okay? Now, moving on, you can read that part about the Lachish siege more if you want to. I want to skip down to the siege of Jerusalem. It says, with order now restored and rebellious populations decimated and deported. So they end up taking down Tyre, Zidon, and you can read about that in the scriptures too. Woe unto ye, Tyre and Zidon, right? It says, Sennacherib turned his attention again to Jerusalem. Although Hezekiah had paid him a handsome tribute, Sennacherib was not one to forgive and forget. He marched on the city and, according to his inscriptions, took it by siege. Okay, it says, here's their account. Well, I don't want to read this whole thing. I want to go down to the biblical account. All right, it says, according to the biblical record of the event, however, the siege was lifted through divine intervention. in the book of 2 Kings 18 and 19, the book of 2 Chronicles 32, and the book of Isaiah is also 36 and 37, all claim that Sennacherib laid siege to Jerusalem, but the prophet Isaiah told Hezekiah he had nothing to fear because the Most High would defend the city. All right, and they give a excerpt. I'll read it. It says, therefore, this was what the Lord says concerning the king of Assyria. He will not enter the city or shoot an arrow here. He will not come before it with shield or build a siege ramp against it. By the way that he came, he will return. He will not enter the city, declares the Lord. I will defend the city and save it for my sake and for the sake of David, my servant. That night, an angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, broke camp and withdrew. He returned to Nineveh and stayed there. 2 Kings 19 and 31. Hey, check that out, man. So the angel of the Lord came and slew 185,000 men, which was freaking massive army. Okay, it says it is this event which inspired Lord Byron's 1815 poem, "The Destruction of Sennacherib," which made the king's name a household word because school children would be required to memorize and recite it regularly. All right, it says by dint of repetition, even those not acquainted with the story of 2 Kings came to understand that the Assyrian king was defeated by the God of the Hebrews. Long before Byron wrote this poem, however, Assyrian chroniclers would reference Sennacherib's failure to take Jerusalem. While the Bible does record the 46 cities of Judah which fell to the Assyrians, as recorded by Sennacherib, it maintains that Jerusalem was not one of them. Further, although Sennacherib's palace at Nineveh was decorated with reliefs depicting his campaigning victories, including meaning detailing the siege of Lachish, Jerusalem never appears among them. You see that? Which gives credence to the story that's written in the scriptures. Yeah, they came down into the land of Judah. They was taking down different cities, but when they came into the land of Jerusalem, the angel came and defended our people, man. And the victory was won, man. Okay? That's what happened. So I always felt like that was a dope story. I'm glad the brother Tazama requested it or mentioned it. I was like, yeah, that's a good one, man. I'm gonna put that one into one of the volumes of great stories. And what I want to do right now, and for those people who are watching, brothers are putting good precepts into comment board. But what I want to do is, I know I had mentioned verse 3, another historical topic and point in 2 Chronicles 32 and 3, and where they basically stopped all the fountains. I want to play this story real quick. And y'all let me know on the comment board if you can hear it, okay? Built roughly 2,700 years ago. It says, even by today's standard, the construction of this 1,750 foot long subterranean passage is an extraordinary feat of engineering. Hezekiah's tomb connects the Gihon Spring to the Pool of Shalom. Gihon Spring is situated on the eastern side of the city of David. Massive. This natural spring is Jerusalem's only fresh water source and essential to the life of the city. Water from the Gihon overflowed into the Kidron Valley and was used to irrigate crops, vines, and fruit trees. When the Assyrians invaded Judah in the late 8th century BC, King Hezekiah decided to reroute the water from Gihon into the fortified city. post what we read. Cut through solid bedrock by laborers working both ends. Just a monumental task, man. Like I'm just like, wow. This bold strategy meant that the tunnel could be constructed much faster. It also required exceptional engineering skills. And that's our people, man. We don't know exactly how long it took for the tunnel to be constructed. Estimated range from 9 months to 4 years. The water flows south from the greenhouse into the pool of Shalom, situated at southwestern end of the city of David. And this tunnel has been proven to be true. The Shalom pool provided water to both the inhabitants of the city of David proper and the inhabitants of Jerusalem's western hill. It says the pool is protected by a broad wall built by Hezekiah under his decree. Even today, many scientists are baffled about how the teams successfully met in the middle. The best guess is that the rock climbing techniques were used. The tunnel has been dated using various methods, including radiocarbon dating, which is off the Hezekiah's time period, thus confirming the biblical verses that clearly state that basically within Hezekiah. Inside the tunnel is an engraving called the Shalom inscription. Discovered in 1880, the inscription was situated near the tunnel's exit. It was taken to Turkey by the Ottoman Empire. Now it's in Istanbul, Turkey. We don't get all that stuff, but that's dope, though. The tunneling, and this is the story of the tunneling. While the pickaxes, each crew toward each other, and while they were still there, 3 cubits cut, the voice of the man was heard calling to his counterpart. So there was a break in the rock on the right, and on the day of the breaking through, the miners hewed each man toward his fellow, pickaxe against pickaxe. And you have to pause and go back. All right, so Lord willing, that was edifying, man. I want to read this story. On to the next one, man. For I want to say, call halal Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakak Wadash. Once again, send double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to all you out there out there pushing the word sincerity and truth. Hey, man, let's get it. Shalom.